December is almost always a mixed bag for game releases. Some years, there are some real gems, and some years, it's a wasteland that ushers us into the next year. In 2022, it's somewhere in the middle. There are several big games launching in the next 31 days, and some smaller ones worth considering too. While we can't wholeheartedly tell you to buy every following game, use this as a roadmap to help you spend all those holiday gift cards. Dead Space makes its grand return in January, but series creator Glenn Schofield's spiritual successor, the Callisto Protocol, is getting first dibs at scaring our pants off. As you attempt to escape a maximum security prison on Jupiter's moon, the inmates turn into ghoulish monsters and take over the asylum. Just like in Dead Space, you must strategically chop and dismember enemies while closely watching your resources in classic survival horror style. It's essentially Dead Space 4, and new games like this simply aren't being made anymore. XCOM with Marvel characters isn't exactly a hard sell, and that's exactly what you get with Marvel's Midnight Suns. While its developers have tried hard to divert that comparison, they're the same people who make XCOM, and there's no denying that this game is very similar. It's based on a rather old comic book series that ran in 1993, so while you may not be familiar with the plot, you're definitely familiar with most of its characters. The main difference from the XCOM series is that it includes some deck-building elements, but otherwise, it's the same addictive turn-based strategy you've come to know and love. Initial reviews have been very encouraging. EA recently bought driving game aficionados Codemasters, but Need for Speed is the publisher's homegrown racing franchise and its crown jewel. This entry is many years in the making and has been at least inspired by the classic Need for Speed Underground. Internal developer Criterion of Burnout fame has handled the heavy lifting to deliver a street racer that doesn't skimp on customization and tuning. As you rise up the street racing ranks, you'll be doing it on your PS5 or Xbox Series console, since this one's strictly next-gen. And you'll be doing it with a flourish, thanks to its new art style that combines graffiti with gritty realism. The first Hello Neighbor is a bit of a sleeper hit, but we haven't quite figured out why. While we can't play Peeping Tom in the real world, this franchise actually encourages you to sneak around and spy on your neighbors. And if your neighbors are anything like the people in Hello Neighbor 2, maybe you should be keeping an eye on them. Many of them have mysteriously gone missing, and it's up to you to sneak around the hood to get to the bottom of it. We played an early version of this stealth-driven puzzle adventure, and it was a bit of a mess. But it's been 8 months since then, so hopefully its developers have managed to get their house in order. Dragon Quest has struggled to be as relevant in the West as Square Enix's 800-pound gorilla, Final Fantasy. But the Japanese publisher hasn't given up, and Dragon Quest XI is one of the most successful entries yet. Riding in its slipstream is Dragon Quest Treasures. This Switch exclusive acts as the prequel to DQ11 with a real-time action-based combat system and an open world. The story follows Eric and Mia, who have the ability to communicate with monsters and must use it to find the mythical Dragon Stones. It should act as a great bridge as we await the full unveiling of Dragon Quest XII. Google Stadia was born and died in less than 3 years, but some of the games for it live on. Wavetale is one of them. It launched for the Doom service over a year ago, which is probably why you've never heard of it. It's from the same studio that created Lost in Random, and follows a young girl who can walk on water, and must do so to save various islanders who are being terrorized by monsters. It's now releasing on all platforms, so maybe its second coming will give it new life. Square Enix is no stranger to reviving old games, and with the impressive sales of the Final Fantasy VII Remake barely in the rearview mirror, reworking Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII is a no-brainer. This action RPG originally released for the PSP in 2008, but now it's been revamped with a higher resolution, an improved battle system, and some tweaks to its voice acting. It stands as a prequel to Final Fantasy VII that follows the strange disappearance of Sephiroth. Some say that the comedy of Rick and Morty is an acquired taste, but how can anyone complain about a shooter where your guns talk back? High on Life is being helmed by series creator Justin Roiland, and it asks you to defend Earth from an alien drug cartel. But they're not peddling crack or heroin, they're turning humans into an addictive substance and Earth has plenty of supply. Each weapon is personified with its own unique personality, which could bring a whole new meaning to the phrase gun shy. It's launching day 1 on Game Pass, so a lot of players will be making some new friends. Do you believe in reincarnation? First-person action adventure Blacktail certainly does. You play as a teenage girl who was a mythical witch in a prior life and is expelled from her village. Soon, her wicked memories manifest in foul creatures that must be felled with her bow and arrow. It's a survival-driven game with a Slavic twist and a morality system. It's up to you to choose whether she goes on about her witchy ways or heads back to the village for a little revenge. Either way, you won't play another game like it in December. Sports RPGs are a rising subgenre. It seems that while a lot of players aren't interested in participating in real sports, they're more than willing to take up digital athletics. Golf Story is already a bona fide indie blockbuster, and now the same studio returns 5 years later with Sports Story, a sports RPG that expands its repertoire to soccer, BMX, and many more. On the game side, it's filled with dungeons to plunder, rivals to take on, and vast lands to explore. If you love sports and video games, welcome to Nirvana. Thanks for checking out our rundown of all the games worth paying attention to in December 2022. And thank you all for all your support across the last 12 months. Whether you're watching this as a paying patron or one of our YouTube fans, we can't thank you enough for all your support. If you'd like to share some Yuletide cheer, head to patreon.com/sifted and drop us a pledge. Or visit sifted.net/donate if you'd like to buy us a coffee or something else for all our hard work this year. Dossier, we'll see you again in 2023.